when you try to be cool and use a blender bottle, but it just has water in it. Hashtag fitness goals. Okay. What are you doing?
Sorry.
Leave me alone. You're not coming in my video. My brother wants to be in the video.
Everybody.
He's starting a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Oh my god. Leave me away now. Can you bring me some chips, please?
Where's mine?
I don't know. Lay's?
We got Slim Pickens.
Oh, I don't want those Fritos. Ooh, softener. Thank you. Hi everybody, I'm Emily Paris and welcome back to my channel. As you can see, if you aren't new to my channel, this is a little bit different of a space. Today I just thought it would be kind of nice because today's video isn't as upbeat and pleasant, not like any of my videos are that exciting, but I just thought it would be really nice to have my Christmas tree in the background. Also, normally I film up in my parents' bedroom in front of that wall, but it's really late at night. It's like 11 o'clock. So I'm down here in the living room and I just thought that this would be really fun. So today's video, I'm going to be talking all about mental health. I want to first and foremost say, because I know people will mention it, I am not a health professional. A lot of times in my videos, because I talk about a lot of health issues, people think that I am a doctor or a nurse or some type of medical professional, and I am not. I am only a patient. This is not me telling you what to do with your life. This is just me using my experience to speak to you guys. Also, if you hear any noises, we do have 3 cats, so there might be some noise. So I guess I just want to start out. I do have some questions that I'm going to answer that you guys have left in video comments or like reach out to me personally. If you do want to reach out to me, you can do that either on my private Instagram, which is not private, it's just more for like my personal posts about my personal life, which I'll have the handles right here, or my ostomy Instagram, which is more like my health Instagram, which is at Rollin Colon. So feel free to do that and you can send me messages and all that kind of stuff. I try to respond as best I can, but I am busy, so give me some time. Emailing is actually the best way to get in contact with me because it's easier to type on a computer out answers than like text over Instagram. So you can, all my links are down below. So jumping into this video, I want to give you guys a little bit of background on me. My name is Emily Paris. I just turned 23 years old. I am a full-time college student. I also work part-time as a server, and I also work as a public relations and marketing intern. So that's kind of where I am in life. I was diagnosed in 2013 with ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune disease. In February, I had an ostomy placed after emergency surgery, and now I have a J-pouch. If you don't know what those are, I also have a video all about that stuff that you can go and check out on my channel. So apart from those health things, I think I've dealt with mental illness probably my whole life. For those of you who know me in real life, I have a very bubbly and outgoing and like happy, friendly personality, but I just I'm very reserved. I'm very much of an introvert. I'm like a very excited, bubbly introvert. And so sometimes I think I can get in my own head. I'm also a worrywart. I just worry constantly and I am really bad at overthinking things. So I think just depression kind of lended itself to my personality that way. I won't go into too much just because it's not just my story, but I struggled with some things in my childhood that I just couldn't cope with or didn't know how to. My parents and I, up until recent years, didn't have a good relationship. I didn't like my parents, and my mom and I didn't have a good relationship, so it's not like I could go to them and kind of vent. And so I think that I just kind of bottled up emotions. The first time I was ever diagnosed with anything was actually this year. So I think that I've been struggling with depression and actually anxiety. I knew that I had depression, but I never said anything, and I just kind of suffered with it for a long time, like probably since I was like 12 or 13, and I'm now 23. So like 10 years now, I've been kind of suffering in silence without saying anything or like really asking for help. And so just because I didn't really know that anything was wrong, I kind of just thought like, oh, this is my personality. Okay. So then I never knew that I had anxiety. I knew that situations would really stress me out and really overwhelm me, or meeting new people or going into a new situation, I would like have to throw up before. And or I would have trouble as I've gotten older, dealing with mental illness. I really have trouble leaving the house. That is one thing that I just tend to do when I'm depressed or have bad anxiety, is I won't want to leave the house and or go and do things or interact with friends and that kind of stuff. I'll end up giving shifts up at work, and that's just not healthy. So I didn't actually know that I had anxiety until one day. I think I was writing a paper for my psychology class, and it like had symptoms of anxiety, and I was like, I think I have anxiety. And so I didn't, but I didn't know how to manage it. I was just like, okay, this is my life. I didn't know that there was something you could do to help that. So then I've also now been diagnosed with PTSD. For those of you who don't know, that's post-traumatic stress disorder. And I don't really consider that a mental illness. I think that's more of like a psychological injury where something has happened to you and you just don't know how to cope with it, basically. So what I actually ended up doing to get help is I didn't actually do anything. I was having a lot of trouble coping with the emotions from my emergency surgery, and I was very angry and just I was overwhelmed, and I was having, so actually prior to having my ostomy surgery, and I have a whole video about what happened prior to that, but I was living in excruciating pain 24/7 for like 3 weeks. And in that moment, I thought, if this is the rest of my life, like you hear about people living with chronic pain, and I thought, if this is the rest of my life, I'm going to kill myself. That's where I was at. I was just done. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was tired of not having answers. I was tired of not being listened to. So then when I had the surgery, now I'm kind of faced with, okay, now you have to learn a whole new lifestyle and basically try to figure out how to live again. You know, I kind of had accepted being in the ICU. I had accepted dying. Like I was like, okay, this is it for me. I'm going to die here. And then all of a sudden they're like, all right, you get to go home. And I'm like, okay, wait, I have to live now? And so my surgeon actually said, if you want someone from psych to come down, this is after I was transferred out of the ICU into a step down unit, probably 4 days after my surgery. She's like, I can have someone, you know, this is a lot for a young woman to go through, and I think that maybe this could be good for you. I don't know if a nurse said something to her or my parents said something, I'm not sure. But so someone from psych came down and talked to me, and Dr. Audette, my surgeon, said, you know, if you want me to prescribe you an antidepressant, I can do that for you. And I said, okay, yeah, sure. I've kind of been depressed for a while. You know, I had just gone through a huge breakup. Tyler and I were together for 5.5 years, really officially ended things right before I got sick. So I hadn't even had time to deal with that. So all of a sudden I have all this stuff, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have a boyfriend anymore. And so that was really hard on top of all of that. So basically, she gave me a prescription for Zoloft, and I took it for a while, and then I just felt good. I was like, you know, I feel better. I'm going to stop taking it. And I think I was okay for a while with the depression side of it, especially because I think I could justify my habits of depression, like wanting to stay inside, not wanting to eat, that kind of stuff. I could kind of blame that away onto my ostomy and stuff. And so, and I wasn't having to work. I couldn't go to work yet. I didn't go back to work until middle of April. And so it's not like I, you know, had to leave the house. I could kind of stay at home. And my mom kind of wanted me like right by her side 24/7 anyways. So I think that that kind of just perpetuated the depression. So, and you know, anybody who's gone through anything scary, I didn't realize that I had PTSD at first until I was reading about PTSD, and I was like, oh my God, I have all of these symptoms. So I don't know how to explain it, but it is this constant fear and worry, not just like, oh, what if something bad happens? It is a terrifying, like literally I was in the car one day and had to pull over because I literally thought to myself, what if I got in a car accident and a pole from a truck that was carrying poles, I rear-ended them, the pole goes through my car and goes through my stomach and ruins my J pouch. And I had to pull over because I couldn't drive anymore. Like, that is not normal anxiety and like, oh, something scary happened to me, so I'm, after a car accident, you're kind of nervous to drive again. This is far beyond nerves. I was having horrifying nightmares. I mean, waking up literally dripping sweat. Anytime I would drive past a hospital or go to my visits, like my follow-up appointments, I would literally be drenched in sweat. Like, my doctors would be like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm just not, I can't be in a hospital. Like, I had to go to the emergency room. I don't remember what for. Nothing like crazy. It was more of like an urgent care like thing, and they gave me an IV, and I went into full-blown shock. Like, I don't know why. And people are like, that's ridiculous, you're being, just ridiculous. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't say to a soldier who had PTSD from being in battle, oh, you're being dramatic by not wanting to go back to the desert. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same kind of thing. Just because I didn't watch hundreds of people die before my eyes doesn't mean that my PTSD is any different. So, I ended up being put on by my other surgeon, Dr. Snyder, for pelvic floor dysfunction and anti-anxiety medication, which worked. But then all of a sudden, I'm feeling better. I'm wanting to go out with my friends. I'm wanting to do all this stuff. And I feel so much better. And so I will admit that I stopped taking the anti-anxiety medication for a little bit because I didn't want to be on medication, and I kind of wanted to see where I could, if I could live without it, and I can't. At this point, I can't live without the anti-anxiety medication. I'm also not going to therapy right now. We had to switch my insurance coverage situation, I don't know how to explain it. But so I have to find another therapist or have my doctor re-refer me to the therapist with the new network. So basically, that's kind of my history. So now I've screenshotted some questions from that video, from my last video of how I stay positive, and I'm going to answer those. So the first question said, how do you overcome the emotions? Honestly, I am a crier. Honestly, I love crying. There was a while there, though, that I was crying literally every day, and I was just like, I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of crying. And so but crying, honestly, letting myself feel emotions. And in my last relationship, he kind of was like, don't cry, you have to be strong. And that made it worse. Bottling up emotions makes things worse for me, and I get overwhelmed. And so, I mentioned this in the positivity video, but reading inspirational quotes, that's what works for me. Praying, that's what works for me. Crying a lot, that's what works for me. And then taking my medication is something that I have to do every day. I cannot skip a day, or else I honestly can almost instantly feel a difference. The next question says, how do you take care of depression without pharmaceutical help? I journal, but I'm afraid to open up inside of it, like really open up. Any ideas for me? So I love writing. I love creative writing. It's something I've always loved. These videos are really therapeutic for me because they're basically like a video diary. So if that's what you want to do, make videos, like record them on your webcam and then just save them on your computer. And so those I think would be a really, really good idea. So the next question says, any advice for how to reach out for help with mental health stuff, specifically being depressed or just in a season of struggle? Like, how did you tell the person you told? I bottle up my emotions and struggle. I didn't screenshot the rest of her question, but basically, okay, so what is it? How to reach out for help. I think the first part of reaching out for help is recognizing that you need help and wanting help. Because if you're going to tell people, I think I'm depressed, if they're like, okay, now you need to be on medication, or you need to go to therapy, you have to be willing to do that. If you just want to tell people I'm depressed, well, then keep it to yourself. So that's one thing, is you have to be willing to put in the work. It's not easy to overcome this stuff. Okay, so as far as like being situational depression and just depression, okay, so basically the way that I have to explain this, and I think the misconception a lot with mental health, is that it's not always something you can overcome without medication. At a certain point, your brain doesn't develop the chemicals that your body needs. So like serotonin, or a lot of people have sleep issues, so your body isn't creating melatonin and those kind of things, like different hormones. And eventually, for me at least, it started messing with my period. My body wasn't creating the correct hormones to regulate my period. So at a certain point, you do need medication, but there are times when I think that you can get through depression. So after mine and Tyler's breakup, before I got sick, there was like a 2-week period where I was definitely situationally depressed. Like, I would go to bed at like 7 o'clock in the evening, like takes my sleeping, like I would take ZQL and like Advil PM to knock myself out, because I didn't want to be awake anymore, because I was tired of like crying, and I would just sob uncontrollably. And I'll talk more about this in my breakup video that I'm going to actually film after this one. But basically, that was a thing that I got over, a situational depression that I got over. And I think I could have gotten over my ostomy depression. I don't know. So there are things that bring on depression that you can get out of and move on from, but especially like the loss of a loved one or something like that. But I think at a certain point you just need help. So then, like, how did you tell the person that you told? Like I said, I didn't really tell anybody. I was kind of offered the help. Whether somebody noticed signs of depression, and that's why Dr. Audette recommended the antidepressants. When now I only ended up on anti-anxiety by coincidence, because it was just so happened to be the treatment for something else I had. And so honestly, I think that you, one, need to tell somebody that you can trust and that isn't going to judge you. 2, you need to tell somebody who you know is going to get you help. 3, you need to tell somebody who is going to follow you through this journey to get better. So even if that's not somebody you know really well, or that you do it and don't tell anybody, you know, you don't have to tell all the people in your life that you're depressed. That's not their business. So even if you take it upon yourself to go and tell a therapist, and then the therapist can have better advice on how to talk to your family about it, then I recommend doing that. If you don't have health insurance or don't have a way to get therapy, I would recommend honestly going to a church, because even if you aren't religious, pastors and priests and those type of people are trained to help you in any type of situation. And a lot of those people, there's counselors within churches. So even if you are of, you know, Christianity, Islam, you know, whether you're Sikh, Hindu, Muslim, I don't know, Scientology, which that's a whole nother video. Basically, these people want to help you. And so if you don't have health insurance, I would go to maybe a church. Just be aware of the fact that they're probably going to counsel you through faith, if that makes sense. So they're not going to totally, and they can't prescribe you medication. So the last question said, which I think is a really good question, and one that I kind of sat on, because I really struggle with this. I mean, I am still coping with the emotions of my first surgery, let alone surgeries 2, 3, and 4. And so the question said, is there anything that triggers you or makes you think of your experience with an ostomy? Like, is there anything that someone can do or say that reminds you of those hard times? So many of you know that me and my previous boyfriend, Graham, broke up, and now that I'm kind of starting to get back into the we broke up like 3 months ago, I think, and now that I'm starting to get back into the dating world, I don't like being touched, and I used to be really affectionate, and now it just, I can't, like, the thought of someone touching me, like right now, I just like, I don't like it. And so being intimate with somebody is really hard for me, especially if they touch my stomach. I don't like my stomach touched. I think that being touched comes from, or the like not wanting to be touched comes from it being like basically in a hospital, people are touching you without asking. Not in a bad way, but like, you know what I mean? I mean, they're like, hey, we're going to give you this IV whether you like it or not. And so I think that that's one of the things. Anything that people can say or do, I can't really watch Grey's Anatomy anymore. I cry way too much. It is too hard for me to watch patients. As far as what somebody could say to me to trigger me is honestly when people try to relate to my situation when they've never gone through it. That really, nothing, I'm not an angry person. I'm sure you guys can tell that I'm just not somebody that is angry. And I mean, okay, I say that, but there are situations that make me angry. And when people will now find out about my ostomy and they'll say, oh, I have IBS. I understand. No, not the same thing. Or a old friend of mine who I've now removed from my life was getting surgery. And you know what, the surgery she is having is hard, and I get that. And I'm not trying to minimize anybody's, stuff, but it's a minor surgery. She goes home that day after the surgery. And she said to me, oh, this is a major surgery, Emily. This isn't like your intestinal surgery. It bothers me when people minimize what I went through. And a couple of people have commented on my videos and been like, she's so dramatic. If it was so traumatic for her, why doesn't she get help? First of all, you don't know me. Second of all, I am getting help. Third of all, don't minimize what I went through. What is traumatic for me might not be traumatic for you. We all deal with things in different ways. I'm also 23 years old. I was 22 when I went through this and lived a normal life. So no, I hadn't gone through the death of my parents or, the loss of a loved one. I had never been sick, really. And so no, and you can see that I'm getting mad about it right now, that people minimizing what I went through. I also have trouble now that I mentor other ostomy patients. It's hard for me. I struggle because I just want to take their pain away. I just don't want anybody to feel sad about the situation, especially when I am here and so willing to help. That's why I say that emailing me is really the best way. I can't really respond to Instagram messages because I want to type too much out, and it takes way too long. And so, I sit up for hours. You can ask anybody who personally knows me. I sit for hours and just message people and email and try to help as many people as I possibly can. And I feel overwhelmed sometimes because I feel like I'm not helping enough people, if that makes sense. So I don't really know if that answered your question as far as triggers or how I cope with that. I'm also in an ostomy support group online called the Ileostomy and J-Pouch Support Network. So if you're struggling with depression, join a depression support group. The only thing that I will say about joining support groups is that misery loves company. It turns into a lot of complaining. And that's not always good for you, especially if you're trying to move on from a situation. So those are kind of my tips and tricks and just kind of talking about mental health. If you guys want me to do another video on this topic and you want to ask questions, leave those down below. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this video, did something for you. And like I said, it's kind of nice for me to use these as a video diary, so I can come back in a couple years and watch them and kind of see where I was at. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe and leave your comments down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching as always. Bye!